Start.
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our program, Question Time at Padakshep. Padakshep is a non-profit organization run by mostly students like us. It mainly supports underprivileged students who are mostly at the HS level based on their merit and needs. Today, Padakshep is in its 5th year of operation. In this year, it has undertaken the project to provide complete financial support and educational guidance to 6 very bright and needy higher secondary students. Padakshep periodically monitors their performance by staying in a regular contact with the students and contacting their mentors. For more information, please visit our webpage www.padakshep.org. Question Time at Padakshep is a series of interactive sessions with eminent people of our society. To know the past events, please log into our YouTube channel. So this time we have Dr. Chakraborty with us. Welcome, Professor Chakraborty.
Hello.
Professor Chakraborty is presently in Department of Mechanical Engineering in IIT KGP. He did his B from JU and PhD from IIC Bangalore. He has expertise in many things. I would like to mention a few of those: microfluids and nanofluids, interfacial phenomena and phase change, computational fluid dynamics, and so on. Dr. Chakraborty is recipient of many prestigious awards and honors. To mention a few, I'd like to start from the following. He is the recipient of Alexander von Humboldt Fellowship in 2005, 6, and 7. Recipient of Platinum Jubilee Young Scientist Award by the National Academy of Science in 2007. Scopus Young Scientist Award in 2008. Ken Sitharamu Medical and Prize Award by the Indian Society of Heart and Mass Transfer in 2011. He got the prestigious Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize in 2013. I&A Chair Professorship in 2014. So before starting today's session, let me introduce other participants of this event. So myself, Sudipta Singh Gorai, and we have Sampath with us. Sampath, please introduce yourself.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, I'm a PhD student in Kaplan Astronomical Institute, Netherlands. I work in strong gravitational lensing with Leon Koopmans and Joop Sheshe. So, welcome to Question Time, Professor Chakraborty.
And we have Swagato Isat, which is with you. So Swagato, please introduce yourself. Okay. So let us start today's session. So the first question I would like to ask you is actually on behalf of one of our volunteers, Pratyay Mukherjee. He is a PhD student in Aarhus University, USA. So he wants to know the following thing. Did you ever have any feeling like instead of staying in India, if you had moved abroad, you could do better research?
I would say that actually I never had this feeling. I mean, when I first went to IIC Bangalore for my master's work, I got an impression that here I have found an institute where I can work according to my freedom, and I can work on my topic, I can work on any topic of my choice, and there is absolute freedom in research. Now, I don't want to compare research facilities available in India with research facilities available in abroad. But I have always been a firm believer that whatever may be the research facilities, if you are forced to work on a particular topic, maybe which is decided by the funding or some project money or whatever, then your intellectual freedom is in some sense hampered. Let us say I want to solve a particular problem just because of my own passion. Now, I would like to go somewhere for doing research if I find that I am encouraged to do that and I am not forced to work on a particular topic which is chosen by others and not by me.
Exactly.
So, I mean, that made me feel that, you know, I mean, there may be several other advantages in doing research in abroad. Okay, I have done several research projects abroad, but that all those were after my PhD. But during my PhD, I enjoyed a lot. I mean, working in India, and I have absolutely no repentance for that.
Okay. So the next question is also, you can say, as a continuation of the first one. As you have said, there are other things which is advantageous. So he also wants to know that I heard that due to several unnecessary restrictions, researchers in India suffers a lot. Example, getting fund to travel abroad to attend a conference is next to impossible. The problem seems to lie in the mindset of the policymaker. So do you think it is a big problem, first of all? And if it is so, then can it be changed anytime soon?
Actually, this was a severe problem when we started our career as a faculty member. It is no more a severe problem. Like I can talk about IIT Kharagpur, for example, because I mean, there are several other premier institutes in India, but because I have been serving at IIT Kharagpur for a long time, I know the rules in IIT Kharagpur better. That is why I am giving IIT Kharagpur as an example. So you know, nowadays uh, there is a source of funding called a CPDA, which is
Okay.
given to faculty members for traveling to conferences both in India as well as in abroad, for purchasing books and other research materials. And with this funding you can go for international conferences. Not only that, even if this funding is exhausted, institute has identified some very prestigious conferences. If you have been invited in some of those conferences, then institute gives full funding. Full funding means travel, accommodation, and all sorts of funding necessary to participate in that conference. And this particular scheme has started only recently. So while the question that you have raised is true in the perspective of a period of an era which was quite some time back, currently I don't think it is a big bottleneck.
But what you have said is all about the professor, or for, is it
Oh, you
applicable
mean
for the
research
students?
scholars?
Yeah,
Yes.
for
For
research
research
scholars.
scholars also it is exactly the same thing. Institute has identified several top conferences, and if you happen to be a presenter in any of these conferences, institute is giving you full funding to participate in the conferences. So yes, again, this was the situation maybe even a couple of years back, but right now the situation has changed, and I believe it's a good change.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is actually asked by Shampoo. So I would like to refer to him
No,
to
yeah,
ask the
I would
question.
like to ask a question, but before that, from your answer to question number one that Sudhita asked, it's like you said that you enjoyed work during your PhD, and also the facilities that you got, etc. But my point is, and also that point that you mentioned, that you want to define your own problem or to explore of your own interest from your own, so that nobody defines something for you and you have to do that work. But
Yes.
isn't it that a question, like, I mean, not a question, like, isn't it that a valid point that you should have a structured timeline and a focused goal, so that the proper utilization of time through your entire PhD and proper utilization of resources can be done, rather than probing, I mean, moving around in different problems, trying different hand. Of course, it will give you much more exposure and experience, but it's also a trade-off that you make with your time, resources, and money. So, what do you think? From
Yeah,
your
I mean,
perspective?
absolutely. Now there is no conflict between having intellectual freedom and being focused.
Yes.
So, I mean, you can still be focused. You can still complete your research activities within a reasonable time frame and with an objective that serves the community in the broad sense. That means you do not do just your research for I mean for your own
Okay.
just a minute. I think the connection got cut off.
No,
So
no, we can hear. We can hear you.
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean being intellectually independent, still you can define problems which are important for your community, important for the scientific community, important for the society, and in a focused manner you can work towards that objective. But I mean it depends. I have seen many PhD students who actually want to be constrained more by their advisors. So I mean
Hmm.
it is a philosophical way of looking into the problem. I mean me as a PhD student always wanted more independence, but I have faced many students who are my friends, colleagues, and some of my own students I have seen that who want to be more constrained, who want to be more structured by their own advisors. So the philosophy will vary from one individual to the other, but I think irrespective of the philosophy, one should have a common goal that yes, we should work on a focused area, whether the focused area is defined by you or the focused area is defined by your advisor or in consultation between your advisor and yourself. I mean that's a different issue altogether, but I totally agree with you that yes, you should work on a focused topic and with a focused time frame so that everything is not absolutely open ended. One should keep in mind that PhD at the end is just a degree, it's not the end of life. So I mean one can initiate broader research agenda when one completes the PhD program and all this. So PhD for me is just a research training, and if you are trained well during your PhD through the problems that you have been solving, then you will become quickly an independent researcher. And I think a good hallmark of an independent researcher is a person who doesn't continue anymore with the research agenda that he has been following for his PhD, but takes up a new agenda. I mean, gives a new leadership, and I think that's an important test which assesses that whether the person is intellectually independent or not.
Okay. Thanks.
Mhm.
So the next question, like I framed it like for you that I've seen much of your, I mean, some of your, I mean, question time or similar kind of interview that you had previously.
Mhm.
And from that, I have found out that you have always advocated to include undergraduate students to take up research, to include into research, and try to bring or try to, make them involved in the research so that they get a taste of it.
Mhm.
So my question to you that how well the professors in India, especially India, include UG students to active research, and how well do they trust that the UG students could make a difference or will exactly report the exact things because they treat like they are too novice kind of thing, and I mean they might, I mean they don't have a clear idea about actually the research, especially the instruments parts. I mean they are too too childish to handle
Yes.
sophisticated
Yes.
instruments. So many
Yeah.
professors
Yeah.
don't
Hmm.
give them chance.
Hmm.
So I mean, how well do you think the India is evolving in this
Uh,
aspect?
well, I mean, it's difficult to tell about what is the perspective in India because my general feeling, my general impression is that still many professors don't think that undergraduate students should be actively involved in research. And I mean, again, this is a philosophical issue. Now, what I have realized is that it is still very difficult to involve undergraduate students in serious experimental research because uh, you know that in experimental labs many times we work on a 24 hourly basis and undergraduate students have very intensive coursework. So because they have very intensive coursework and continuous exams and assignments to submit and all, many times they cannot be as regular in the lab. But I have seen that once you create an interest in their mind, they will actually be very focused to do some experimental research that is assigned to them. But you cannot treat the undergraduate students in the same way as you treat your PhD students, because PhD students are much more matured, and PhD students will have a broader perspective of the research. Now for undergraduate students, if you want to get fruitful research outcome from them, you have to define the problem very precisely for them, so that they get a structure. The reason is that they are mostly habituated in doing structured coursework, so they don't have much idea for research, and therefore whenever they are asked to do some research work, they take it in the same spirit as that of a structured coursework, and this is very common. So to make them properly utilized for research work, it is the responsibility of the advisor or the research group to pinpoint or to focus the research agenda for them. It may be experimental, it may be theoretical, it may be computational, whatever. Now you have to basically constrain them in such a way or guide them in such a way that they do not have much chance of taking the thing laterally too much away apart from the agenda. So if you are able to do that successfully, then undergraduate students can do wonders. And this I can tell from my own experience, and I can tell you that many of my successful PhD students have actually started their basic research work when they were undergraduate students working with me at IIT Kharagpur. So my way of looking into this is that undergraduate students, sometimes I will tell you another philosophical perspective why undergraduate students are so important for research. Many times having too much of knowledge is actually a curse, because if you have too much of knowledge, what you have a tendency to do is you have a tendency to overstructure your thoughts. So let us say that you are highly trained in fluid dynamics, trained with very sophisticated knowledge in fluid dynamics. So when you are asked to solve a problem in fluid dynamics, you will be constrained to think in the same direction in which you have been trained. But somebody who is not so sophisticatedly trained in the subject will have a scope of giving very simple solutions, which as a more established researcher you might not be able to even think of. So I think that a successful research group should always try their best to train some young minds who are from the undergraduate research pool. I mean, it not only serves the purpose of your own research agenda, but it also serves the national purpose of training young minds or motivating them towards research and higher studies.
Thank you. Yes, that's a I mean great answer that you have given, because when I see others, I mean here in Netherlands or in other places, professors does include UG students, whereas I mean in our institute or wherever I did my masters, I did my master's correct. It was not that much of, because they don't. I mean professors has the idea that they couldn't make it. So now I think they will change, and UG students will have, and
every individual professor has a different philosophy, and I respect everybody's philosophy. What I am telling is just my own personal way of looking into research.
Yes. Another aspect that we want to know from you is that, when you are in an institute where you have to teach as well, along with your research. So sometimes it is seen, we have felt like, doing quality research and along with the quality teaching teaching to the students is, not much of the professors could do that. So what do you think maybe the constraint maybe that they doesn't know that that's not the point, but they do know about quite well about the topic, and in research also they are pretty good, but they can't balance it. So what do you think maybe the constraint or like how one can keep a balance between the two
Um,
from a, professor's point of view, from your point of view?
well, I would say that I mean, teaching can be a burden, but teaching can be a great pleasure. So, I mean, for somebody like me, I have never taken teaching as a burden, but I have always taken teaching as a hobby. So, when I go to the class, many times it has happened that I have faced some questions about which I have never thought of when I was myself a student in that level. And this type of question I have faced in all levels, starting from undergraduate to masters and even in PhD level courses. So when I tried to address these questions, it gave me a broader perspective of doing research. So uh, many times doing teaching has helped me to get deeper into the concepts of research, and not only that, doing research has helped me to update my teaching. So it's directed in both ways. For example, I am teaching a course which is called as microfluidics. It is it is not a standardized course, so it is a evolving subject by itself. So when I am teaching this course, I am using a lot of material uh, which is actually out of my group's research experience. And when I share this experience with my students, I see that it creates a different impression in them. So there are many ways of doing teaching. One way of doing teaching is like you read books and reproduce. You know, in a joking manner, I can say that like when I mean, when we started our career in universities, there were uh, positions called as lecturers, readers, and professors. So people used to say that a lecturer will prepare materials and teach nicely. Reader, who is a senior one, will read the notes. That is why he is a reader. And professor will not prepare and just go to the class and tell whatever he or she wants to tell. So if this is the state of the art, then you cannot relate teaching with research. But if you can relate teaching with research, then you can supplement your teaching with the research outcome that you have got or your group has got, or broadly in the global scenario that what other researchers have achieved, you can discuss about this. Not only that, I will tell you one very important thing. As teachers, we have a tendency to treat ourselves as gods. So what we have a tendency is that in the class we preach and we do not teach. So we tell whatever we know, and as if students are disciples, they are sitting in front of us and accepting what they are telling. I don't think this is the correct spirit of doing teaching. So as teachers, we tell many things that we know, but we should also update the students about many open-ended questions which have not yet been addressed. And then in that case, good teaching with a hint of those open-ended questions can actually kindle interest on research in the mind of a student. So actually, in my perspective, good teaching and good research, they go hand to hand together. Good teaching of a fundamental subject clarifies your fundamentals, and that can help you to do more in-depth and fundamental research.
Thank you, Professor. So this is one of the aspects that we also felt during our classes, that teachers do preach and some teachers don't even entertain questions. So,
Yes.
yes. So this is nice. So another aspect that you have always, said or advocated that encouraged to work in collaborations or groups, both national and international. So how do you think that Indian research environment motivates or has this place to work in groups or the acceptance of it? So how do you think that much more Indian professors are interested in making up a group or collaborating with international students or professors? How do you think?
This is a very, very important question. Um, Actually, the spirit of collaboration many times is misunderstood in India. So, and this starts from our culture. So many times I have seen that if I have given a group project to my students, say there are 5 students, one student will work and remaining 4 students will be their parasites. Now, but many people do not understand that international collaboration doesn't go in that way. Even high level collaboration in the national level also doesn't go in that way. So, the spirit of collaboration is that if you have complementary expertise, then you combine that complementary expertise to do something which takes both of you one level ahead. So, for example, say some group is very strong in experimental research. Some other group is very strong in theoretical research on the same topic. So now if they combine together, they can come up with some very high quality results which could not be possible easily to be obtained by the individual groups. But there every group has to contribute. Now this spirit is well understood in India and well appreciated in India, but the problem is that sometimes out of collaboration, if you publish a paper, now many people still give the credit of publication to some specified authors in the paper and think that it like they don't want to give the credit to all individuals who have written the paper. And in India, this is sometimes a very serious issue. If there are 10 authors in a paper, which may be possible in a collaboration, I have heard that there in some department there is a shortlisting process in the faculty member selection, where for young assistant professors they are considering only papers where you have which you have as a first author. But in collaboration, you may have very significant contribution, but you still may not be the first author. But of course, and that should be taken in proper spirit. While it is broadly taken in the proper spirit by the scientific community, I agree with you that there are still some organizations in India which do give a lot of emphasis on like who is the first author, who is the corresponding author, and so many of these issues. And if you bother so much about this, I mean that can harm the spirit of collaboration.
Yes, true. That's true. So, I mean, as a follow-up questions, like you have discussed much, much with Indian, context, but what do you think? I mean, your idea or from your ideas that what may be the disadvantages of working in a group, precisely because advantages are there that you tend to get within a short time you get good results and a good you build up many things in a very short time with collaborations. But what do you think is the disadvantages of working in a group rather than working individually?
Well, collaboration, I would say that there is nothing disadvantageous in collaboration, but the entire spirit of collaboration, uh, it depends on trust. So, I think that one should go for collaboration only when there is absolute trust amongst the research groups. I have seen that there are some research groups which go into collaboration just for short-term gain, but they do not expose the details of their results to the collaborator. So I think collaboration should give an opportunity of good learning. For example, let us say I am doing theoretical research. Now somebody say I have a collaborator who is doing experiments. So I would not merely just try to use the experimental result, but I may like to learn more about the experimental techniques and the error associated with the experimental methods, the setup design and all those things. So I think that full unrestricted access to research data by both the groups That is a key thing towards successful collaboration. And if that is not there, then the collaboration is just to satisfy some short-term interest of publishing papers, but it cannot satisfy a longer-term objective of learning science.
Yes, thank you. Another important aspect, I mean, from the student's point of view, is, I mean, from the researcher's point of view, especially in India, that they have to, I mean, sit for a hunger strike to hike a fellowship, which has remained constant maybe for 6 7 years. So why do they need to stretch so far? I mean, we say people like you. I mean, someone goes outside. He's going outside. Why you are not staying in India? But like the conditions of the researcher, or I mean, the things they are provided, and they have to like do many other things to get a hike with the increasing price rise. So how
No, I totally
do you
agree
think?
with you that students should have scholarship uh, of values which should be matching with their performance in the PhD level. So, for example, if there is a student who is performing uh, very well in the PhD, should get a high value fellowship, and that fellowship should be matching with the like it cannot exactly match with industrial standards, I agree, but it should be to a minimum threshold level which gives him a good standard of living, him or her a good standard of living. Now, what should be that threshold value of fellowship? Why students have to like sort of I mean fight continuously to get hiked fellowship and all? This is something which is beyond my scope to talk about, you know, but I'm
Yeah.
always a supporter of like high value fellowship for students who are better performing, and
So
I'm always a believer that you should be given financial benefits based on your performance. So like for me, I mean, I would not mind uh, proposing a structure of student fellowship where there will be a good amount of base salary which every student should get, and there is a good amount of top up salary depending on the performance of the student. So in that
now
way,
I have a question about how do you quantize the performance? I mean, you need to quantize it sometime. Right? I mean, quantify it. Sorry. I mean, that
no,
I mean, in numbers
quantifying
of papers.
performance
In
is
Yeah,
difficult, you know. I mean these days people tend to quantify performance with H index, citations, and all those things. But I would
exactly.
say that the best way of like telling whether a performance is good or bad is by sending it to international peer review. So if say 5 professors who are working in your area and who are internationally reputed, if they say that you are doing well, that means you are doing well, no matter what is your H index, no matter what is your citation, because these things depend on so many other issues. I mean, I know
Yes.
researchers who try to have some tricks to sort of enhance their citations and H index and so many other things. So and there are many reputed journals which are not of very high impact factor but are highly respected in the corresponding field. So one should not try to quantify these things to the extent that what is commonly done in these days. I believe that one can send the report of the student, that what the student is doing or what he has done over his first 1 year or 2 years,
Hmm.
to internationally reputed top scientists in the field, and if they say that the student is doing well, that means the student is doing well.
Okay. Thank you. I have one question that is not in the questionnaire right now, but just it came up and with the discussion. That I mean, how do you think like I mean number of papers versus quality research? It seems I mean there is some kind of race with everyone, not everyone. I mean with many. in terms of papers, how many papers did you submit, publish within a year? It doesn't matter when it comes to the quality of it, but for some it's the quality, and they publish very few but quality. So how will the Indian environment or research environment has, otherwise if you don't have paper, you won't have, I mean, access to many other things, many other facilities for research, like attending conferences, etc. If you don't present that you told, there are many things, many scholarship or whatever for funding, to go for a conference and give a talk or something else. But suppose that you are trying to do something, I mean, really quality research takes time.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely. I
yeah,
totally agree with you. I mean,
yeah,
uh, uh, it doesn't matter how many papers you publish, provided you publish very high quality research. And that doesn't mean that you should be poorly productive. So I think there should be a balance between the two. I mean, there are many researchers who have like shown both quality and quantity. Like for example, you can give the example of Professor C.N.R. Rao, for example. Like I mean, who has shown like example of both quality and quantity. But there are some who publish many papers in quote unquote junk journals. So I
yeah,
don't accept that as a quality research. So
mhm,
I will not look into the quantity, but I will look into the typical quality of journals of in which you commonly publish your research work. Well, maybe one or two papers you can publish in relatively less reputed journals because maybe I mean the editor has requested you for an invited paper or whatever. I mean those
yeah,
things may happen, but
mhm,
broadly I think the quality of your research and impact of your research is more important than the quantity of papers.
yes. Thank you, Professor.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thanks, Sampath, for all the questions. So the next question I'm going to ask is on behalf of one of our volunteer, Anna Rudra. He is a postdoc fellow in Johns Hopkins University, USA.
Mm.
He wants to know the following question: is there a need to communicate scientific activities in India to the general public in a more aggressive way? Or you can say that, do you think the academicians should put more effort, energy to make their research somewhat accessible, understandable to common person? I mean, in our case, when we actually talk with our relatives or friends who are those who are not in this stream, so when they ask us that what are you doing, so I am doing actually a PhD in quantum information and science. So they understand. Okay, they gently throws this quantum part and says, okay, you are a computer engineer. That's it. So
No, I mean I will answer your question. It's more of a societal issue. Like I mean in India, you know, uh, in society, uh, like it is very difficult to convince about what you are doing if you are doing science.
exactly.
And the whole thing has to do with something which is our culture. Look at the top newspapers. Let
Mhm.
us say, let us give an example, give examples to the top national and regional newspapers. How many of them would cover big scientific achievement stories in India?
Yes.
They will cover about stories of about science in India if it is a scandal story. But if it is, but they will not cover a story which talks about like a big breakthrough of an Indian scientist in coming up with a solution which may be important for societal reasons. And I do not blame the media for this because it is according to our taste. See, media
mhm,
will give you the material which you want. Like I
mhm,
have asked myself a question, like being a common man, when I open the first page of the newspaper, actually I have also never wanted to read a science story. Uh, that is my cultural upbringing. I always wanted to read either a sports news or a political scandal. So because of that, these things are given due importance. So it's more of a cultural issue. The second point is that it requires an ecosystem. I have seen that many subtle research achievements of professors in foreign universities are given a big hype while advertising in their corresponding websites. So I'm not undermining the work that they have done, but with a much advanced level of work done by an Indian scientist, their corresponding institute websites will not routinely cover that. So it is more of a cultural issue, and this cultural issue, societal issue, what is our taste of reading? Our taste of reading is not really science. Although we are scientists, we are not trained to read science as a magazine material. We are trained to read other materials as magazine materials, but not science materials. So these are some of the reasons why I think that science and scientific achievements of Indian scientists do not reach the common mass. And I think it is high time that initiative is taken towards that. Then that will create mutual respect. So the scientists will develop some respect on the societal needs and try to direct their research according to the societal needs, and society also will have some respect on what scientists are doing, irrespective of what amount of money they are earning.
Thanks. So the next question is from your institute, asked by Shomojana. So he wants to know the following thing. Many papers of you are published in internationally reputed journals of physical and chemical sciences. Does your work fall in the interface of engineering and basic sciences? How is it important?
Well, I would say that an era has come when we should not distinguish between engineering and science. See, everything in the world that we are doing is either fundamental or applied science. So it can be fundamental physics, chemistry, mathematics, or applied physics, chemistry, mathematics. Everything, all activities in science that we are doing, including biological sciences. So research nowadays should not have any barrier. There was an era when there was a belief in Indian science that there is a big demarcation between science and engineering, and still now that is very much prevalent. But I think that an era has now come when people have started realizing that research is so multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary that it is very difficult to demarcate different branches of science, different branches of engineering, and very difficult to distinguish between science and engineering. So I have always tried to contribute towards some fundamental science which has applications, which has practical applications in say developing engineering devices, for example, or designing engineering devices and so on. But the basic principle on which these devices operate, these basic principles are all based on fundamental principles of science. And I mean, without science, how can we do engineering? I do not have any answer to that.
Thanks.
So I think you have already answered his next question, which is, being from an engineering background, what do you think about the necessity or importance to excel the research in basic sciences for the advancement of technology? I think you have already answered.
I think yes, I think I have answered the question.
Okay. So we are almost at the end of our session. So the next question is, you belong to an institute which deals with both teaching and research with equal importance. Is it possible to maintain quality and focus in both cases simultaneously?
I think I have answered this question.
Yes,
like
yes,
the balance
already
between
before.
research and,
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And
So can you
so the next
briefly tell
question.
us? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sudipta, can you hear
Yeah,
me?
yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, so the last two questions, as it seemed to me, probably
Exactly.
couple them together and can put it more generally to Shumanda as if he is interested in a more informal way to discuss whatever about the activities he personally is up to and his group is up to, or maybe it's whatever he is interested in doing, and that last questions related to whether your recent work can have any contributions to the field of any diagnosis, let's say any disease or diagnosis.
Okay, so I believe that like your question is to get some idea about the kind of research that we have been doing,
Mhm.
and uh, I mean uh, I mean it will require, I think, another couple of sessions to talk about that, and I will enjoy doing that at a different time. But
Sure, sure.
I think for the sake of time, I will just summarize that in our group we are doing research on fluid mechanics over small scales, which is one aspect of microfluidics and nanofluidics, that is fluid dynamics over micro and nano scales. So there are many fundamentals that we have addressed, like for example, I can give you one perspective of science. uh, in science there are many things which are intuitive,
Mhm.
like uh, my 4-year-old son, he also doesn't put his finger on fire. He is not trained, he is never told that you should not put your finger on fire, but he knows that it will burn. So that is something which is intuition. So in science we are born with certain intuitions, and it is important to respect these intuitions, because uh, actually most of these intuitions work because they are based on some fundamental principles of science. But sometimes some intuitions do not work. Like if you have a rough surface will usually resist fluid motion. But some of our research has shown that if you have rough hydrophobic surfaces in a confinement, that can actually augment the flow instead of creating a resistance. And this is something which is non-intuitive, and we have developed corresponding theories to support this. And this is a kind of a non-intuitive thing, because the roughness usually is an hindrance. But uh, I mean actually what happens is that over rough hydrophobic surfaces in a confinement, nanoscale bubbles may be formed, and because of formation of nanoscale bubbles, the liquid which is flowing on the top of the rough surface doesn't feel the roughness of the wall, it is being cushioned by the bubble blanket. So this is something which is non-intuitive, and there are several scientific issues associated with roughness hydrophobicity coupling over small scales. I mean if some of you are doing research in these areas, I would request you to read my papers in PRL in on this particular topic. So this has been an area which has been very close to my heart when I started doing microfluidics research. Now in our group we have done, and we are currently doing a lot of research on theoretical microfluidics like electrokinetics, multi-phase flows, and so many other things. But of late what I have realized is that there is no great satisfaction if we can translate some of this research into medical diagnostic devices which can give affordable healthcare to common masses in India. So we have tried to develop low cost medical diagnostic devices based on some fundamental physical principles of microfluidics and nanofluidics for very low cost and rapid testing of blood samples for diagnosing diseases that are very important, and uh, for not just for India but for the developing world in general, and for the entire world, uh, uh, to be honest, not just for the developing world. So that has been uh, like uh, our focus, and towards that, because I mean there are several scientific challenges. Like you asked a question, the link between science and engineering, this looks like engineering, but at the end you think about the flow of a complex fluid through a microchannel. Like blood is a very complex fluid. So when blood is flowing through a microfluidic channel, there are some interesting aspects of fluid dynamics. So uh, I mean, the reason for which I took up this work is because it looked to be challenging from an intellectual point of view, and it also looked to be challenging in terms of developing a practical device which is useful for common needs. And so this is the broad research, and for like the citations of some of my awards, like the, for example, the Bhatnagar award, for example, I think specifies this importance of like the transport of blood as a fluid through microfluidic channels, fundamental understanding of that, which can potentially give rise to the design and development of diagnostic devices.
Okay.
Mm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So before we end, I want to ask you one thing, just to give a message to the young researchers like us who are who are in their PhD first year or second year, and and like starting our research career. So a general message for us. Anyway, yeah.
Um, uh, I mean, whenever, see, I mean, you usually ask for a message to somebody you know who is going to retire, who is going to get a lifetime achievement award. So I know that I have become reasonably old, but you know, I'm not that old to give a really useful message. I can only give a message which I have always been a strong believer in, that you will do well in research, not just in research but in anything, if you convert your profession into hobby. So just look at Sachin Tendulkar. Like for 20 years or more, he has performed at the topmost level, not because he took cricket just as a profession. For him, cricket was a hobby. So as a researcher, you will do well in research, not just in your student life but also as a scientist, or a professional scientist in future, maybe a research scientist or a teacher, or in general a professional, maybe working in industry, wherever, if you take your work as a hobby. So if you take your work as a hobby, then it will become your passion, and one day it will become your obsession. And once it becomes your obsession, that is when you will like stretch all your abilities and go beyond your abilities to become a very successful individual.
Thanks.
Thank you, Professor.
Well,
Thank you.
in that context, probably I would like to add one
So,
an experience that I had in
Sudipta,
in
Yeah,
IISc.
Sagota is
So,
saying something.
can you hear me? So, in that case, I will go ahead. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So, in IISc, often a word goes on that if you want someone to not not to work any further, just give him a Bhatnagar award. Okay. So, means well, in IISc, it's often looked up. They look up to Bhatnagar in a common sense.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
that way, that people don't work after that. But yes, for Sumanta, maybe literally it was an obsession. Doing the science was an obsession, so that well, he never stopped working. It is 1.5 years after he got Bhatnagar, and he has stopped working. So that is just on a fun note, not serious. Don't take it seriously. But I had to ask one question that is quite my personal question. That we had enough discussion about the research on the PhD or about the career. But I had a question about, let's say, you finish your PhD and you are now in a crossroad, whether to go for a postdoc or start a career,
Hmm.
whether to join in some institutes as a
Hmm.
faculty or
Hmm.
in some positions. So, what will be your personal suggestions? That I know it is as much as individual, it's an individual choice
Yeah,
of
yeah,
every
yeah.
person. But what will be your suggestions for, let's say, a student who finished his PhD and got a position somewhere?
I will give a practical perspective to it. Uh, Now in India, everything is measured by age. So like for example, the topmost award in science, Bhatnagar award, that is also given to scientists within age of 45. So you understand that things are measured by age. So if you have crossed 35 or if you are close to 35, it is very difficult to get into a premier institute as an assistant professor, because many institutes give that age as a bounding constraint. So my advice is a very practical advice. There is no scientific basis in this. That if you are close to 35 and if you have finished your PhD and if you are interested for an academic position in India, try to grab an academic position first and then take a leave from your institute and go for postdoc later on. Because if you have crossed the age of 35, it may be difficult for you to get a starting position. But if you are very young, I would encourage you to go for a postdoc and then join in the position of assistant professor.
Well, with that, probably I will ask Musa if he's interested in anything else that he feels that he must share with us, or
Yeah,
any context of the organization we belong to, Padakshep. You can go
exactly.
ahead.
Yes, yes, and
So, if anything
I think it's I mean your initiative is very important, because like just like a differential equation, like an initial value problem requires initial condition for solution. So in India, you know, your career many times depends on initial condition. If you are born in a very poor family, you do not get good coaching, you do not get like get a very high quality education system, which is your support system for your school level education, and many times that demarcates the career of one person with the other. So even if you are very talented, but if you are not financially gifted, then that can create a lot of hindrance. So I would say that it's a very important step that you give good financial support to young individuals who are talented, who want to excel in life, and my best wishes will remain with all of you and with all of your efforts.
thank you very much.
Okay, so that's all for today's evening. So I would like to say sincere thanks from Team Padakshep for being with us. And we hope we'll have this type of interaction session with you in future also.
Sure, and it was my pleasure. I'm sorry, but my voice was bad today, and
No, it's
I mean it might not be easily audible to many people, but I apologize for that, and I enjoyed interacting with you. Thank you very much.
thanks. Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you. Thank you.